very interested to sort of hear about this because I don't know about you, but I have young kids at home and they have iPads, they have touches. And having been in the game industry for 10 or 15 years, we've seen a shift now because all kids have access to tablets. Once upon a time in the casual games business, we had a PC in the kitchen. And so there was a distinction between who is the purchaser of the game and who is the actual user of the game. And those things got commingled because mum or dad had the credit card and they're the ones who actually bought it, that's how we track them. But at the end of the day, it could be the kids who are actually using it. So hopefully Barry's going to explain the real truth behind kids on tablets. So take it away, Barry.
And my first lie is I'm not going to tell the truth. I can't deliver the whole truth. I'm only going to be looking at content for the under 8 market, or what's known as the pre-K3 market. Other ages are well catered for in the broader Casual Connect conference. I'm going to look at the kids category as a whole. I'm going to look at some exemplary content. I'm going to look at some of the issues surrounding discovery, design, and monetization. I put both Twitter handles. The StoryToys Twitter handle is there for people who are using Twitter, and I put my own. So if you want to say nice things about us, please use StoryToys. If you want to say nasty things, keep it personal and direct your tweets at me. Firstly, how many people here have kids under 5? Oh, great. Okay. How many of you have given that child your iTunes password? Okay. All of you should do that because it'll help this industry really, really grow. iTunes passwords with children are very, very good. What I'd like to do first is have a look at the kids category on iTunes and on Google Play. So let's have a quick look at that. This is snapshotted from my iPad yesterday. Sorry, I can't see the kids category. So I'll try Google Play. Sorry about that. I'll try Google Play, and there's no kids category there either. And the fact is, it doesn't exist, and this is a big issue in the market. So where do kids' applications exist? Well, they're in games. Sorry, I'm just a little bit behind my slides. They're in games, they're in education, they're in entertainment, and they're in books. But there's no specific location for kids' content. So you have to consider this from the outside when you're designing apps for kids. You have to consider whether you want to go to the game space, which is absolutely cutthroat. Entertainment, also the same, because you're competing with titles like Angry Birds and Clash of Clans and Talking Tom. I call him Annoying Tom, but Talking Tom. Books is also competitive, and we'll look at that for a moment. In a moment. What I'm also going to look at as we go through this is what size the category, what the market is, who's making apps, and also importantly, and this might sound kind of stupid, but what specifically is a kid when it comes to content. Here's an example of the books category on iTunes, and you can see there's a lot more children-oriented content and adult-oriented content, obviously there, but you've got Marvel, Sherlock Holmes, you've got Disney have some IP in there, Charlie Brown. So that's a good place to start with, and that's what StoryToys has focused on. But let's look at it from a competitive perspective. There are, according to 148apps.biz, there's 132,501 games in the App Store at the moment. There's 55,004 books. There's 72,540 education apps. So, you look at that and you say, well, actually, books, it's okay. It's not as heavily populated. But when you look at, and this is the information from Destimo from the review last year, if we look down here, well, this is App Store revenues, and all games takes up most of it. But the books category is only 2% of the App Store revenues. Education, a similar level. This is blended iOS and Android. So arguably, it's a more competitive category. So you have to get your content absolutely perfect. You've got 55,000 books chasing 2% of App Store revenues in the books category versus 132,000 chasing 65% in the games category. So it's a more competitive sector. Let's think about the opportunity scale for a moment. And that's important because we're just hearing numbers. I think there was a report in the last couple of days that indicated that Apple have now that the App Store is on a current yearly run rate of about $12 billion in developer revenues. With a not so scientific method, we've looked at these areas, and we reckon that what we call the pre-K3 market, which is the under 8s, represents about 5 to 10% of App Store revenues in those categories. So it's still a big opportunity. $500 million, potentially $1 billion this year. It's good. So the next question is, why are there so many games and education apps? And again, it's not really scientific, but I actually think people think it's easy compared to making games. People know what books are like. They know what content their children like, so they think it's really, really easy. But, it's not. So let's look at the players who are in the space. Well, at the top, you've got the big guys. You've got Disney, Nickelodeon, Sesame Street. You've got Penguin, or Random Penguin House, as it's now called. You've got Bonnier, which is operating as Toca Boca in this space. And then you've got these breakouts, where we've got companies like ourselves and Ocean House Media and Duck Duck Moose, Good Beans, who are behind Nighty Night, and Story Toys. And there's thousands of apps there. But the big problem is that there are tens of thousands of app developers at the bottom end producing tens of thousands of apps. And these are mom and pop shops, hobbyists, opportunists, and other poor, misguided souls. And those are the people that have said, hey, you know what? Angry Birds, if I could just do 0.5% of what Angry Birds did, I'll be rich. And it's not like that. Most apps that launch in categories like education or book apps category sell less than 500 units over their lifetime. So it's a tough space. So let's look at the audience again. I mentioned pre-K3 market. People sometimes get confused when they hear about the K-12 market. The K-12 market actually covers the entire US education age spectrum. We're looking at pre-K3, which is, in fact, even a little bit earlier. You've got a pre-verbal market, and the ages look like this. So from 2 to about 9 years old. Thank you. From 2 to about 9 years old. So content selection is really important. This is very, very important when you're marketing children's apps. Actually, it's even more important when you're designing children's apps with the market in mind. From the age of 2 to 4, parents prescribe content. From the ages of 4 to 7, you have parent-child consensus on content. So this is a really sweet spot where the parents like what the children is playing, or the children are playing, and the children like what the children are playing. Beyond that, peer review takes over. And peer review is a very, very difficult. Ask anybody who's targeting content to 10-year-olds and above. I like to think there's another age after this, which is just whatever, which is these kids who just will not listen to what their parents say. But the sweet spot for a lot of app developers is in the parent-prescribed and parent-child consensus range. So let me think about this for a second again. Think about a 2-year-old and think about the last conversation you had with the 2-year-old. Was it rational? Was it reasonable? Or was it even slightly coherent? Then think about the last conversation you had with an 8-year-old. The two are very different markets. They are as different as 20-year-olds to 80-year-olds. So this is something you have to be very, very careful with. Too many people produce apps that are not, they're just designed for children. Children can mean anything. You have to be micro-targeted when you're designing children's apps. So I'd like to look at some apps while we have time, and this is where it might get a bit hairy with the iPad. So bear with me. So I want to show you an example of one of my favorite app companies, and this is Toca Boca. People will probably seen some of this. This is an app. Hopefully, what is their signal? Yeah, I knew I'd break it. Now here we go. So this is an app called Toca Tea Party, and this is designed really for 3 to 5-year-old girls. Firstly, Toca Boca, very, very playful company. You got audio? Hang on, let me just... we should have audio on that. Okay, look, I'll make the noises. This is very, very simple. This is not a game. It is not a toy. It is a weird hybrid that encourages collaborative play for children. And it allows them extend their imagination. It helps them, it augments their imagination. It's a tea party game. You lay out your table for your tea party. You put your tea out, put the drinks out for your guests. You give them some cakes and some sweets. And then you get your teddies around. Now, the nice thing about this is parents can play this with children as well. So this is a great example of an app that encourages collaborative play. It's not really about learning, it's just a toy. And when you play it, there we go. Got a radio here. Your teddies can eat the cakes. You can give them more. Drink the drinks. You can actually, you can even spill things and take a tissue to wipe it up. And anybody that's ever watched children play will know that children love this. They can have conversations. This app, can be used for hours and hours. I'm going to look at another app, which is another favorite of mine. And again, it's completely different. It's not designed as a digital babysitter. A lot of apps are incorrectly designed as digital babysitters. This is beautiful. And this is a Sesame Street app. I'm not sure if this is available in the European App Store or not. I love this app because it actually uses the smartphone perfectly. It is very, very simple. It is just Elmo calling you. So the phone rings and we have to answer. And it's Elmo. And you can see it's done like FaceTime, so you can see me in the corner there, right? Absolutely beautiful app. When you see children who love Elmo playing this app, you see the smiles on their faces, and making children smile is a really, really important thing. The nice thing about this app, and we'll get to here in a moment, is the way that they're monetizing this app as well. You can actually set alerts so that your phone will ring or the app will alert you, and Elmo will call you at 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning or wherever you want. Kids love it. Now I'm going to show you some of the not so good. Who's had the experience of the Very Hungry Caterpillar? People know the book? A couple of people know the book. Okay, let's have a look at that. Sorry, I'm back into landscape mode now, so we won't have any more problems. This app is a disgrace. When you think about the Very Hungry Caterpillar, firstly, it's a book that is designed for 2-year-olds. It is designed, teaches very, very simple principles. I could have built this in PowerPoint. First thing that a child does, a 2-year-old, they can't read. Tap on the apple. What happens? Tap on the apple again. Nothing happens. Tap on the apple. So the parent comes along and says, okay, you've got to start with level 1.
Please eat the lemon.
Please eat the lemon. So the Very Hungry Caterpillar, it is about munching fruit.
1.
No munch sound. You can only touch it once. You're not eating the lemon. This is an example of a very poorly designed app for a child that will have no engagement, that actually is damaging to the brand. There's a bunch of other ones, but I've just been given my 10-minute sign, so I'm a little bit pressed for time. One I was going to show you was Disney make a lot of great apps, but this isn't one of them. This is designed for princesses. And people will be familiar with the princesses. If anybody has a girl,
to dress up your favorite Disney princesses.
What's the word for when you insult a monarch? It's treason, isn't it? This is treasonous to Disney's princesses. You can dress up as a princess, but it takes so long to get to the dress-up phase. Try to get there. We've got to go through the storybook first. And I've missed it because the icon didn't show up. Now, we'll wait for the icon to show up.
Number 1 was finding the
and it's just boring. And I've watched girls who love princesses play this app, and they think it's boring. Sorry, I'm in there. You can put your face in. That's about the only innovative feature that's in the whole app. But even the UI is terrible. Do we tap? Yeah, if we tap, the dress doesn't end up on me, so I have to move the dress. But actually, there's not a good enough response on it. Do we drag them? Well, if we drag them, actually it registers as a tap. Very, very poorly designed app. Actually just frustrates children who use it. I'd be doing my company a disservice if I didn't show one of our own. This is an app, we just won Children's Technology Review Editor's Choice for this app. This is an app that we said, okay, we're going to make an app for the pre-verbal market. The pre-verbal market is very, very difficult. We wanted to make a counting app. So we said, okay, let's make something very simple using Farm. Most of our books are storybooks, so people are familiar with our product. And we said, well, what do parents know? Parents like books. So we would take a book-type metaphor to it. But we're all game geeks. So we said, let's do some really, really interesting things with this. So we developed a 3D simulation of a board book. So they pop up. There's even a little physics simulation in here, so it's a perfect simulation of a board book. This has been designed. We've had child psychologists involved in the pacing to ensure that everything's been done at the right time. And we've ensured that we have things in here that
I let my horse do the thinking.
that will engage parents as well as children.
1.
And everything reinforces learning. I'm going to really quickly show you my favorite piece of this, because we have games in here as well. And if I just click into the games. And we've tried to include Easter eggs that keep children engaged. And it works. This app has a month-on-month retention rate of more than 45%, which is pretty good for the children's space. This one I've got to clean cows. It can get pretty boring cleaning the cows, so actually all I need to do is pick up a cloud and rain on them, and I can clean many of them at the same time. So it's little Easter eggs like this that keep children coming back to apps. Let me go back to my slides now. Yeah. So let's talk for a moment about discovery. Parents seek validation. Every parent that I know is driven by a fear of being a bad parent. And it's generally an irrational fear. Most parents are great parents. But parents do seek external validation for the choices that they make. And this has given rise to the mom blog phenomenon. Mommy blogging has become such a phenomenon that it is, even has its own conference called Blog Her. That's a great way to get exposure for kids' apps. Really, really good way to communicate to a very relevant audience. Community management on platforms like Facebook and Twitter are really, really useful as well. Featuring, everybody dreams of the feature. As Rudy Giuliani said, hope is not a strategy. Do not hope for a feature. You have to get your apps out there yourself. But if you have a technology that's good, or an app that has a brand that will show off a platform that will make somebody want to buy a Nexus 10 or an iPad Mini, then try to bring that to the fore so that if it does get noticed by the editorial team, that it might get featured. And I can hear all the free-to-play people in the audience saying, why don't you buy your installs? Free-to-play doesn't work. Not in the pre-K to 3 market. Parents are, ever since Smurf Village, parents are extremely wary of applications that claim to be free, but then they're hit with different currency things. I'm going to show you an example of a moment of how to do that right, but it's a fundamental issue. You have to do this the old-fashioned way. Make a good app, tell people about it, and please get them to tell other people. The other thing that can work, though, is price drops, and we're familiar with those. And people are familiar with things like App Gratis and Free App a Day. I'm going to share some numbers from our own thing. So we did a promotion on Hansel and Gretel over October 29th. We did about 60,000 downloads. We spent $3,000. We were delighted because we moved a huge number of apps. We decided to repeat the experiment a week later without using Free App a Day. We got pretty much the same number. I think we were 10K apps short. We still got to number 1 in the charts, but we didn't have to spend $3,000. And the interesting thing was the impact, not the impact so much on, you can see it here, not the impact of this particular spike here, but down over the other one, when we did the other promotion, you can see we actually started to sell more. We got right up the charts with our full price products as well. So that is the only kind of free-to-play or app store marketing initiative that really, really works in the same way that games works, from my view. The other thing that we can do, and I'm looking at Tom down the back, is messaging is really important, and cross-promotion. When you do have a volume of users, and we have about 3 million installs, it's not big for games, but it is big for the children's market. You can message those and cross-promote your apps across them. This is our cross-promotion window. What we're showing here is what apps you have installed, what apps you don't have, and we generate, I can't say the specific number, but it's a high double-digit number in terms of our revenues that we're generating just on the back of our own cross-promotion. I'm getting to the end now. I'd like to talk briefly about monetization. I think I've mentioned all of this already. Paid works. Freemium also works. Free-to-play doesn't. Think of Smurf Village. But Paymium is also a good option, because the question is, how do you build a lifetime value model from a customer who's only going to buy your 99-cent app once? And the thing, it's very simple. It's Paymium. And I want to just go back to one app that I showed you earlier. So Elmo calls. Here we go. So this is a great thing that Sesame Street do. I've got a parent center here that's quite easy to get to. Because children love to see parents love to see their children laugh and smile, this is a great app for this. This is now one of the highest grossing apps in its category on the App Store. And it's because we can buy different packs of calls that Elmo will make to the child. So Thanksgiving, there's calls. Christmas, there's calls. There's calls around birthdays. You can buy a new call for 99 cents, and then you can set that up so your phone will ring, and your child will see that Elmo's calling them again to wish them happy birthday. It is something that really makes children smile. So that's a good example of how to monetize a kid's app. And to close, so just a couple of final words in closing. I suppose the first thing is that kids, particularly the under 8s, have far higher quality expectations than most people give them credit for. Certainly, higher quality expectations than app designers give them credit for, and than adults in general. And think about it this way: they are brutal critics. How many times have you heard "Mommy on board," "Daddy on board"? What can I do next? When they're playing an app, They will tell you very vocally if something isn't working for them. But they also are really, really loyal customers if you get it right. Kids will also say, can we do it again? Can we do it again? Can we do it again? They will return again and again and again to the same apps that they like. So that's a really important point. And as I said, we get a 45% month-on-month retention rate with Farm 123, so it's pretty good. Bad apps will just patronize kids and alienate them. And you have a duty to parents and children to create good apps. Take a soft approach to monetization. It is not, you can't do the hard sell. You are not going to get a child that gives you a lifetime value of $50, $60. Manage your expectations. If you make a good children's app, you should be able to clear $250,000 to $500,000 in sales, and then look at what your next app is, and look at building on that audience going forward. And take a twin track approach as well. Sell to parents, but make sure that children are appreciative of what they're buying. So when you think about that, that actually goes even down to your app store descriptions. Your text should appeal to the parent. You shouldn't say, try our great app. A 3-year-old isn't going to read that description. You should say, hey, we've got a great app for your child. They're like this because of X, Y, Z. It reinforces, this learning or that learning. But your pictures should appeal to the child. And again, these are just some of these small things that really, really work for selling apps to kids. And finally, and it's related to the first piece of advice, is make children laugh. If you make children laugh, you will find your way to parents' hearts, and parents will keep coming back as well. You end up with a pair of customers, and that's the best thing you can do. You're in that parent-child consensus zone when it comes to content selection. And if you can make children laugh, you will have loyal customers. I said to somebody earlier on, this is the first conference I've ever come to. Germany's a great market for us, by the way. This is the first conference I've ever come to where somebody said something to me that makes me feel like a rock star. They said, I have all your apps. When's your next app coming? What can you ask for? That's a loyal customer for us. To get that kind of commonality of our apps across user bases really, it makes me very, very proud of what I do. So I hope you found that useful. I'm happy to take any questions if there are some. And I'm also, if anybody wants to talk to me afterwards, I have my iPad. I've got a whole bunch of other examples I'd be happy to share.
Well, thank you, Barry. That was an excellent summary. I certainly learned a lot as well. Thank you. I'd like to start the question off myself. Something you didn't mention, and I'd just be curious in your thoughts about the dedicated hardware devices available, like the LeapPad. Do you have any experience or any guidance, or try to steer us away from or towards?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of that. We have a stack of devices with kind of funny casings on them and bumpers and in the office. We haven't seen any vendors that are delivering retail channels of scale to warrant supporting them. I think what we're seeing is in the general game space, we're seeing a commoditization of Android hardware. So as long as Google Play is on it, or if it's a Samsung device, Samsung apps, we're happy to support it. But we're not going out of our way to support narrow volume devices that might, great, Toys R Us are going to take 100,000 units. We're going to develop maybe 2 sales or three sales out of that. It's not something we've looked at. I think if we see a large vendor like Samsung jumping on board, that'd be quite interesting. We do see though, we do great business on Google, and we think that it's because there are houses where there are multiple devices. And what device are you going to give to your child? Is it your €600 iPad, or is it a €200 Nexus 7? So we see a lot of traffic on those lower priced tablet devices.
So I've heard a lot discussed as well, a lot of hand-me-down devices. You get the latest device, and then you choose the child you love the most to give them the oldest one, and the one further down. Any questions from the audience? We're all very shy, so I'm sure Barry will stay around, but thank you again.
Okay.
Awesome. Hey, Oscar. No problem.